Hi, this is Ed Rogers, and this is Time to Connect.
Hey, Ed Rogers, man, thank you so much for taking the time to connect.
Oh, hey, John Krajicek. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, right on, man. I really appreciate you joining us. And I got a lot of questions for you. I want to hear all about who Ed Rogers is and what you got coming up. And I know there's a new record we want to talk about. We got to talk about Kerrville, of course.
Yep.
But before we do all that, I just first want to thank you so much for joining me recently on stage at Dan Silverleaf and Denton. Man, that was a blast, and you were so good, and you made me sound so much better. So thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
that.
having me, man. That was a blast. I really was honored to get to do it with you, and yeah, that was a whole lot of fun.
It was, man. So let's see. Before we jump in to see some of these other things, let's maybe start with a potted biography for folks who don't know you. Who is Ed Rogers? Maybe give us a little bit about growing up and maybe
Sure.
music you listened to as a kid and some of the twists and turns. I mean, I know you could go on for uh,
Yeah,
30
I could.
minutes, but maybe a couple of minutes just to give us a good sense of who you are.
Sure. Well, let's see. I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, but quickly relocated to deep East Texas, which is pretty much the same thing.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
grew up in a little town called Center, Texas, which is just about 30 minutes east of Nacogdoches. And small town. I got out of there pretty quickly after high school. My older brother, I would say, had the biggest influence on me musically. I would rate his album collection at an early age, and he loved John Denver more than anybody. That was my first concert. He took me to see John Denver.
Mm,
And a lot of the country 70s crossover stuff, Eagles and Poco, and
mhm,
you know introduced me to Delbert McClinton later, and really cool stuff like that.
mhm.
And also just developing my own taste at that age. I really found that I found the Beatles, and just spent one summer. I think my freshman year of uh, uh, high school, that summer I spent just listening to Beatles records, and the whole summer.
Mhm.
And then just went on from East Texas, lived in down on the coast in Corpus Christi for a while. Then I lived in Austin for about 8 years, which led me to the Kerrville Folk Festival. And met a bunch of people there, but and they became like family to me, still are. And they group of them called the Tone Deaf Cowboys had a big influence on me musically and kind of gave me a direction to set off in.
Mhm.
And I've been playing music live. Started a little in Austin, but mostly from Fort Worth. I've lived in Fort Worth now for what now, 25, 26 years, and I've been playing music the whole time.
Yeah, right on. Uh, Maybe a bit of a strange question, but how would you respond if I said, "What were you like as a kid?"
you know, I don't know. It's odd. I've been going back to East Texas a lot lately because my mom passed away last summer, and so
Sorry,
we're
man.
cleaning her house and going through. And I found just this last weekend brought home some photos of me as a kid that I hadn't seen in forever. And I was uh, I was a drummer first off. I was a sixth grade through high school in the drum section, and so I've always made a lot of racket. And I was really into movies and sci-fi and fantasy and all that stuff.
Hmm. More
I used to be a
introverted, more.
stunt man. I used to jump off the roof all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. More introverted than extroverted?
Yeah,
Hmm.
we talked about this at our gig we did, but yeah, I'm kind of an introvert in a crowd, but then I get on a stage and go, "Hey, everybody, look at me!"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Kind of what we do. So
yeah. It's really interesting. That's not uncommon. I've probably shared with you, one of the things I taught at Texas A&M for many years is public speaking, and I can tell you some of my very best public speakers were self-described introverts.
Yeah.
Had that same kind of thing. You know, it's more they recognize this as performance. They got up for it. One difference: the extroverts wanted to come hang out and talk about things after they were done. The introverts wanted to go and
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
and go be alone. Yeah, after that. But yeah, man, that's cool. And when did you first start playing drums?
Oh, well, I mean, my mom said I was doing it in the womb. So,
Yeah.
uh, uh, pots and pans and cardboard boxes at a very early age. And then sixth grade, they, got to go into band and got a pair of drumsticks in my hands as fast as I could.
You still own a drum kit?
I do. I play drums in a band called No Class.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. You've got quite a few projects going, don't you?
I do. I'm kind of have a band addiction. That's a little bit of a problem sometimes, but I have my main band, which is Sam the Lion, which is
Yes.
we have a new album out. That's my friend Chris Curtis and I are the songwriters and singers for that band.
Mhm.
And then I play guitar for a band called The Matthew Show,
Yeah.
which is my friend Matthew Broyles, who is I think, genius songwriter. Very, we call it nerd pop, nerd rock.
I
And
actually got to sit in with a song or two with you guys once
oh yeah,
in Fort Worth
when
with,
was that?
with you and Matthew. I believe it was you and
Oh yeah,
Matthew, wasn't
right
it?
on. It may have
It
been, yeah.
it was what was that great little club in Fort Worth? Oh man, we were on the way home from a vacation up in Colorado, I think, and I realized, my God, Ed's going to be playing literally when we're driving through town. And I reached out to you, and you said, "Well, bring your guitar." And I
Yeah,
for a couple songs.
I
Yeah,
remember playing with you and Jacob that night up at the Post. That was really fun too.
yeah, that's right. We did that thing too. Yeah, yeah. Oh man, we've played together a lot. I didn't realize that. And then, but that's not all. You got have other projects too, don't you?
And my friend Steve Long and I perform as Rogers and Long,
Okay.
as an acoustic duo.
Yeah.
And then last year, also with Matthew Broyles and a friend of his named Paul Shapira, who is a fellow that lives in Serbia. He's an expat that lives in Serbia, and he is also this genius songwriter. And they have a band called Apuk the Destroyer that did not exist except for the albums that they recorded long distance
Wow.
each other. And the albums are brilliant. They're very like Pink Floyd psychedelic. And so last year we played the Psychedelic Panther Music Festival, and had a really good response. It was really fun. And so we're going to be Paul's coming back to the States in April, and we're going to be doing that again.
Oh, that's cool. That's
And
cool.
let's see, is that everybody? I think that's everything. I can.
And you don't stay in your lane, man. I
I,
think that's one of
I
the
don't.
great that's
Yeah.
one of the great things about music now. I was just talking to uh, Isaac Hoskins about that, and he was talking about when he kind of decided to go a little more country, a little more honky tonk with this band. But he's been raised on a lot of different kind of music, and he talked about the fact that next record might be different.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
cool, man. When I was a kid, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, there was that sense that you sort of had to stay in your lane. You had to choose and stay there.
Well, yeah, and they still want to pigeonhole you in some
Yeah.
genre, this genre or that genre. That's the hardest thing with Sam is people. What kind of music? And I'm like, well, it's got soul music, it's got
Yep.
blues and R&B, it's got country, it's got we just really try to mix it all together, and so it's hard to describe to some people.
Yeah. Well, let's go there. Tell us about the new Sam the Lion record.
Right. It's called Make It Stick. And it took us quite a while to make it. We got bogged down during COVID. We were making it in Austin with our friend Ron Flint. He's a genius. His studio is Jumping Dog Studio there in Austin, and he did a fantastic job kind of getting us through it. Uh, so we took our time and did it over kind of long distance, making the trips back and forth, and finally got to release it January, and it's got let's see, I think there are 5 of Chris's songs and 5 of my songs and one we wrote together.
Nice. Nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a fun band. It's Matthew Williams on drums, Roger Harrison on bass. Matthew's daughter Amanda sings backup, and we always feature her on some songs in our live shows.
Yeah.
And those guys can just take, my music is like we're talking about genres. I have a hard time writing in any specific genre. So my songs and Chris's songs too tend to be kind of like you said, they don't stay in their lanes, and these guys can just hear what I heard in my head and just make it happen, and it
Mm,
blows me away.
yeah. That's cool. It's a really fascinating record. And by the way, I'll put the show notes up on the episode with the link to so people can go check it out. And I recommend that they do. Um, yeah, man, I want to push this idea again a little bit of you being fascinated with playing in bands because I mean I get it in a lot of ways. Uh, when we were up there in Denton and Isaac and his band started playing, they sounded so good,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me want to start a band again. Just
Yeah.
it's different, and so it's the live thing, but it's also the guys that my Leavenworth brothers. We're still together. I mean, we're living all over the place, and so we can't play gigs, but we're still making music. We were all talking today about a song that we're working on. Uh, and that's one of the things I like about it too, as a songwriter. And you said they can get what's in your head. Maybe I don't have the vision that you have. What I found is beautiful is I present this song to them in kind of a rudimentary way, and some of the things they do with it, the way it comes back, it gets the Leavenworth treatment, and it
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
back, and I'm like, holy
yeah,
crap, man, this is so
yeah.
cool.
It's the same. They can do both. They can sort of capture the way I heard it, and also they offer awesome, great suggestions and arrangements.
Yeah, but the
Magical.
other side of that coin, and I assume you've been there. Anyone who's been in a lot of bands that during your life have. It's damn hard to have a band. It's a smart man once told me the secret behind business and life in general is to manage expectations, and I think that's right. But very rarely will you get 4 or 5 people together in a band who all have the same expectations. Some people want to practice every week. Some people don't ever want to practice. Some want to gig all the time. Some want to record. Some don't. Some want to do this song. Someone, and it can ruin a good friendship. I've had some great experiences. I'm really lucky with the Leavenworth guys, but that daunts me a little bit, and
Yeah,
it's so easy to do the solo thing. It makes it a little more convenient. But yeah, man, it's
definitely more
worth it.
economical.
It's
Yeah.
worth it. And I think it probably says something about you that you've been able to make so many projects work. You're a good dude and you're easy to get along with, and you probably tolerate a lot of BS.
Well, yes, and at the core of all of these bands and musical partners I have is friendship. That's the
Yeah,
beginning. That's the basis of all of it,
yeah,
and years and decades now of friendship.
yeah,
So yeah, we have our little band fights sometime, but they don't amount to anything.
yeah. Yeah, I think part of that is that we're older now. Maybe
Yeah,
some of the nonsense
well,
happens when you're a little bit younger, but
that's a little bit of the challenge of keeping a band together too when you're this age,
yeah,
because we're not 18 and
yeah,
hungry and wanting to live in a van on the road.
yeah. And people have kids and
Oh yeah.
obligations and work and um, man, I know you've got some gigs. You've always got gigs with you. So many projects, always got gigs coming up. But Sam the Lion has a South by Southwest performance coming up.
It's yeah, it's not an official showcase, but
Sure.
it's at the Saxon Pub, and it's they're called 360 Inc. I think that's right, 360 Inc. And they're having us come in and do a little showcase during their daytime shows at the Saxon Pub.
Cool. Well, unfortunately, I have such a backlog on these interviews that this episode's not going to go out until well after South by
No
Southwest is
worries.
over. But that doesn't
Got
mean we
plenty of
can't
other
talk
gigs to
about it.
promote.
Yeah, there'll be other things at that time. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it. Do you know what day it is?
It's what, the 15th, March the 15th,
What day of the week is that?
a Wednesday.
Okay.
We're
I've
going to be
got it.
like at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, something like that.
Yeah.
It's exciting, and it's going to be midweek during South by, so I think it'll be a little less
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And the Saxon, when I lived in Austin, that and the Continental were my
Yeah.
haunts. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that place. I've never gotten to be on the stage there yet. So I'm
Oh,
really,
that's cool then. Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. Hey man, I'll do my best to get down. I'm doing a thing on Saturday at a place called oh man, I'm getting old. I forget the name of it. It's Style Switch Barbecue
Okay,
up in the
cool.
north side. I'm doing that on Saturday, but I don't think we have anything going that week. So Wednesday I might scoot over and get to see you guys. And
Awesome.
it's been a while since I've been to the Saxon Pub, so I'd love to go there. Well, let's talk Kerrville a little bit. As I
Sure.
think, yeah, I know we could probably talk Kerrville the whole time, and maybe I should do a time to connect um, loser camp episode and have about
Yeah,
18 of
do
you
it.
guys up on the
Do it
screen.
from loser camp.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. But as you know, I think I was very lucky in that my parents moved to Kerrville when I was a senior in high school, and so and I'm a little older than you, and so I was probably a lot older than you actually, but I was there in the early days. I got to hang out backstage in 1975, 76, 77, and
Wow,
man, it
that's
was
awesome.
just incredible. And then I didn't go for a lot of years, and then our mutual friend Patrick, I think, is the one instrumental in getting me to come back. And you and I met at Kerrville, and we talked about this, and I forget.
Yeah,
Remember what year it was?
I don't. You know, I've been going to Kerrville since '92, and I've
Okay.
only missed that that summer festival a couple of times in all those years. So they blur together so much now,
Yeah. It was. You gave me. It was a CD you had. Was it called North Through the Trees?
Misery and Gold was,
Misery and
yeah.
Gold. That's right. And you gave me it. So, and it was new. So what year? Would that have been like 2001 or 99?
No, 2000.
A
I
little
should know
later.
this. I think 7 or 8, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah,
Man.
I'm not sure. I'd
Yeah.
have to find a copy of it somewhere.
Anyway,
Look at it.
talk
Yeah.
about Kerrville, about what it's meant to you, and
Sure.
what the initial kind of feeling was when you got there and discovered.
Right. I don't remember how long I had. I think I moved to Austin in '88, so it would have been '92. So around 1991 or so, I was playing. A friend of mine had discovered disc golf, but we didn't know what we were doing, so we just took like frisbees and
Yeah.
went to the disc golf park, and we're just throwing and this, and we're like, having a good time. But this guy comes up, and he's got the whole bag with all the disc in it, and
Yeah.
and he said, "You guys look like you're having fun." And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, if you really like it, you should get these are the discs they make for it, and you can get them at here and here." Anyway, he got talking to him. He's a really great guy. Had a Kerrville Folk Festival T-shirt on, and I said, "Hey, I've heard about that. Is that cool?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, you should go. You should check it out." So, a group of us did go that next May, and I went one night. We went one night, and back then you had to camp in the parking lot if you were only there one night. And we did that, and I just had the time of my life. It was just so much fun staying up all night at the campfires. And so the next year came around, and I was like, "Everybody, we're going back, right?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah." Well, it came to it, and I was like, "No, we can't go. We can't go." And I went, "Screw it. I'm going by myself." So I went down, and no sooner had I set up a tent that I had made friends that were friends for years and years after that. And, just kept going back. And wasn't shortly after that, I met my first wife and got married at Kerrville. And we joked that we got divorced at Kerrville later. And she's still, part of the family. I met her when I met this group that called themselves the Losers,
Yeah.
and it was just a small group of them. And my buddy and I were sitting there camping, and they unloaded their car, and we were like, check these people out. And so I just became friends with them over the years, and that little camp grew to, now we have I don't know how big that canopy. It's huge,
It's
and we have
big.
a fully functional kitchen,
Yeah.
and I don't know how many, 40 to 50 people in camp at any given night usually. And
Mhm.
it's just meant a lot to me over the years, just musically, just that it's the magic of song circles and how that can be. um something that just locks that family together. We've grown as a family, and we're there every year, and we look forward to it. And the years I've not been able to go, it's been really hard, to it's like a huge cleansing, healing thing every year.
Yeah, that's great, man. Did the experience with Kerrville make you want to check out other festivals? And have you?
Yes and no, because like you talked about the introvert thing, like I always wanted to go to Burning Man, and I'm fascinated. I used when I was younger, I was fascinated. I'm like, I want to go. And then I started learning about everything it involves and to go, and it just kind of put me off a little bit. Like, I don't think I want to go that bad.
Yeah.
And I just I haven't gone to really many other like over camping type festivals
Okay.
like that.
One I haven't been a lot either, but one that I've wanted to go to, I don't know if they're still doing it. I assume they are, is the Old Settlers Festival, you know
Yeah,
about?
I've always heard that's really great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe we should kind of pledge to look for another festival. And not that Kerrville isn't fantastic, but man, the whole idea of camping out and meeting the kind of people you meet at those kind of things are typically, like you said, it's easy to become friends quickly. And well, what I guess we can't really talk about upcoming gigs because this thing is, unless you have your
Uh,
schedule
well,
for May and June or something. But
I've got the 4th, Sam the Lion's going to be at the Post, which is our kind of our home in Fort
great,
Worth. Yeah.
yeah,
We had
great.
our album release party there last month, and it was phenomenal. We everybody showed up, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool. Well, again, I'll put the links in the show notes here so people can check out where you're playing. Um, so growing up, you mentioned John Denver and a couple others. Uh, just going back and thinking in terms of as a songwriter now. Let me just ask it this way: When do you remember when you wrote your first song? How old you were?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it was directly the first song I wrote is a prequel, story wise. It's a prequel to one of the Tone Deaf Cowboys songs. They were the ones that gave me a direction, and like as much as anybody could, because I still go off and do all these different types of projects now. But I would just loved their music. They called it Texas folk and roll. And it
Yeah.
was just and so they had this song called Rosie's Boy, and the first song I wrote was like, so I took the characters from that story and figured out what had happened to lead up to that situation.
Gotcha. Yeah, nice. Uh, that's typical of a film buff to think of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I want to talk about I've been really impressed with how knowledgeable you are and the passion you have for film, but let's not go there quite yet. I want to ask you about your songwriting process. You and I have written a song together, which you wrote the majority of it. I came up with the idea and the basic structure, and you took off with it. And I'm very grateful to you for that because I think it's a pretty damn good song, and I think we ought to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun playing it the other night.
But
Uh,
what's your process usually, or is it vary every time?
no, that's the thing is I can't pin it down. First off, I'm not a prolific songwriter. And I don't think of myself primarily as a songwriter. I really think of myself primarily as a guitarist, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, but that like being spurred on like that, like, and you've sent me so many great ideas for songs, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I wish I could just do that every time.
Yeah,
It really songs to me, boy, most of mine just come quick.
yeah,
It just you don't expect it, and then all of a sudden it's there and you have to get it down. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen to me near enough, and I don't exercise that muscle enough.
mhm,
uh but like that was it was a cool beginning thing to start adding on to, and that spurred me on. Same thing happened with Gonzalez, when we wrote that song for Tim. um Tim had just passed away, and the next day I had this pick my guitar up and the tune started coming out, and I just thought, well, this sounds like a Chris Gonzalez song.
mhm.
So I sent it to him, and he sent me back lyrics, and then we finished it within a day.
Yeah,
Usually that's how it happens, really quick. I have another song that I wrote while I was sitting in traffic near the ballpark in Arlington when a game was getting out and I was trying to get home.
That's a nice time way to use that time. Well,
Yeah.
it's a little cliche question, but I am curious, and I'm sure it varies every time. But I could ask it in the kind of linear fashion of what comes first, the words or the music. But is it? Do you ever come up with a chord progression and melody, and you have no words, and you're just singing and humming the melody, and then you start trying to find words?
Yes, and more so after watching the Beatles Get Back on
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that thing. That all of us, the bands, we've not rehearsed the same way since. We've all seen that.
Wow.
It was it really altered something in me to see them working that way. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, just start spitting words out. It doesn't matter what they are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Have you ever done the opposite? Have you ever written out lyrics and you don't have a
Oh yeah.
melody? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
a lot of
can't
times
do
I have
I cannot
an idea
imagine. How do you
first.
do that? How do you do that? I just can't imagine.
Um, just because the theme of the song comes first into my head sometimes, and the idea. I used to, and early on I made up characters a lot and stuff, and then later my stuff would got way more personal. Um, but yeah, sometimes it just depends. Sometimes it's the music first, and sometimes it's the idea for the song.
And I want to ask about Bob Dylan, but I'm going to ask this backwards, just because Dylan's an obsession of mine. Um, if Bob Dylan knocked on your door right now, and you went to the door and said, "Well, hello, Bob," and Bob
Hi,
and
Bob.
Bob said, "Hey, Ed, he said I heard you're a songwriter, and I'd like to hear one of your songs. Please play me one of your songs right now. What would you play for Bob Dylan?"
Oh, you've got to be kidding. I mean, I just have to play what I think is my strongest song. And I think that's right. No, I don't know. Um, I think Tomorrow for Tim is
Okay.
and Ballpark are both lyrically where uh, and then, yeah, it would be one of those two.
Uh-huh. Okay. Cool. That wouldn't be intimidating at all, would it?
Oh, I wouldn't, no, I would not have anything to do with it. I would just say, you're not really Bob Dylan. Go away now.
What about Bob? What do you how do you think about Dylan? And I mean,
Yeah, I knew
he's
you were
such
going
a
to ask this, and
yeah.
I was going to try to figure out how to let you down easy. That I am not a you know big a Dylan fan as you are. I
Uh,
do appreciate Dylan, I listen to this old stuff every now and then. Um, I I am melody to me is the real thing about music that I like melody and harmony and a horn section.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean I've been trying to kind of discover and go back and listen to someone like Bruce Springsteen, who I got to
Mm,
see the other night for the first
mhm.
time.
Cool.
I was so kind of getting ready for that. I started listening to like I listened to Born to Run album, and I was just like fascinated with the way his songwriting isn't like anybody else's.
Mhm, mhm,
Very different, and I don't think I ever realized that.
mhm.
I guess I probably just need to, what I need to do is sit down with you and let you school me on Dylan.
That would be fun. Um, well, I have mixed feelings about him too. I mean, I certainly don't like everything he did or does, but and you've probably heard me say before, and to feel a little bit like a broken record, it's one of those things, man. For some reason, this is not doesn't apply to the Beatles because people who were not there at the time can go to the Beatles now and just be blown away and say, "Okay, I get it." Most people don't with Dylan. It was a contextual thing in a lot of ways that if you weren't there and didn't realize how profound an impact he had on the
Mhm.
on culture and on music, it's kind of hard to really get it. But I could give you 10 songs.
Oh, I'm sure.
I could probably give you 15 songs and say just listen to these closely,
Mhm.
and I think you'd get it more. But no, I don't feel the need to convince people about Dylan. I'm just curious how people think about him because he's such a big character in what we do, musically.
Yes, and definitely. And maybe some of my trepidation about that is just he's intimidating. you know, lyrically, it's really intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I live by the motto that comparison is the thief of joy. But you know,
Mm, mm.
but,
And you know, again, broken record, but it, it's almost impossible to overestimate the importance of what he did to
mhm,
lyrics. I
mhm.
mean, it didn't really before him. It was "I Want to Hold Your Hand," you know,
Oh yeah,
and that's
yeah.
overstated. I realize I overstate that, but there's so much truth to it. But yeah. Well,
Which
look,
you know, I love. I want to hold you.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nothing wrong with that either.
I
Yeah.
love a good three and
Yeah.
a half minute pop song, man.
So let me ask you some rapid fire questions, and maybe we have time to talk a little bit about your film passion too. I really want to hear more. We haven't talked much about that. I've just kind of observed it and caught little bits and pieces to know that you know a lot about film and that it's one of your passions. But
Mhm.
before we do that, a couple of quick kind of rapid fire questions. Uh, if you had to, what show comes to mind? Show that you've attended, most memorable show.
Most memorable show. I don't know why, but my mind went to the Flaming Lips because that is an amazing show. That's a show.
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Uh, and of course, um, you know, we saw Rod Stewart last summer, and then now I just saw Springsteen, and I was asking Kat, you know, who do you think was better? And I was like, I think Rod Stewart was better.
Really? Wow.
It
Wow.
was great. It was so good.
That says so
Um,
much about you that you go Flaming Lips and Rod Stewart, you know,
oh,
that
but you know, then you know, when living in Austin, you know, we'd see. I was there when Don Wassler was packing, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
the punk club, and that
yeah.
was the greatest show I've ever seen. So
I'll never forget. I saw Don Walser and the old 97s together at Liberty
yeah.
Lunch.
Oh,
And
awesome.
and I remember Rhett Miller was saying something like about the reviews when they had played together. Someone in the review said something like, you know, compared to Don Walser, the old 97 vocals weren't so strong. And he said, duh, it's
Yeah,
Don Walser.
yeah.
What do you think? Well, how about a show that you played that really sticks out as being one of those?
Well, I got to play with this guy named John up in Denton recently. That was
Ah,
pretty amazing.
that was so much fun, man.
Oh,
No,
wow.
seriously, most memorable show you played.
Well, I the our album release party was definitely one. We, you
Yeah,
know,
good.
we packed the bar, and you know that was like real proud of that. And I looked out in the crowd, and there were 80% of them were friends.
Yeah,
And I was like, well, like you know, they came because they're our, but they didn't come. They came to hear us,
yeah,
and I was like, oh, how lucky are we that we have all these cool friends? It was a great show. It was really fun.
that's great, man. You can only play one record for the next 6 months. Pick it. What is it?
Oh, 6 months. I thought you were going to say for the rest of my life. That
No,
changes.
that's too hard. But maybe even in the
Wow.
next couple of weeks, there's it's just the idea is what comes to mind that you could play over and over again.
Well, my favorite album of all time, and this is gonna maybe um, make some people think less of me, but I don't know. But ELO's Out of the Blue is my
Oh man,
favorite album
yeah,
of all time.
just incredible. And Jeff Lynne is amazing. And so yeah, I think
I
that's
discovered that was in my brother's record collection, and that was the thing that really first made. And I had not really sat down with the Beatles yet, so when I heard the Beatles, I was like, "Oh, they sound like this guy," you know.
hmm, hmm.
And
Yeah,
you
big
know,
time.
got that. But that one just is just I could endlessly listen to that album over
Cool.
and over.
And other than Saxon Pub, what's a venue you've never played, but that you could, you know, that's not completely out of reach? That's something you could say, you know, this could happen, but I'd really like to play there. Anything come to mind?
The Kerrville stage would be
Oh yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. Cool.
That's probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, uh, let's see, man. We don't have that much time. I like to keep these, you know, at about 40, 45 minutes, but
Okay.
we got a little time. So let me ask you first to, it's tough as this question is to bring your passion about film into about you know, a couple of minutes and tell me about
Sure.
how that happened and
Uh-huh.
how you think about film And maybe some of your favorite films.
When I was a little boy, Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning after the cartoons would go over, um, there would be one channel of the, three channels or four channels that would have old movies on. And my mom would walk by and she'd see that, oh, that's Arsenic and Old Lace. You should watch that, or that's a Hitchcock movie. You should watch that and look for him in it because he makes a cameo in all of his movies.
Mhm.
And that I think is what got me hooked. And then when I was, let's see, 77, so I was 11, just about to turn 12 when a little thing called Star Wars came out, and my dad put us in the car and drove us to Shreveport to see that. And I had no idea what we were going to go see. And I just have this vivid, you have those few vivid childhood memories. I have this vivid memory of being in the back seat of the Ford Galaxy driving back from Shreveport and just going, I don't know what that was, but it's the greatest thing that ever happened. And I was so hooked. And back then you couldn't go on the internet and learn how they made that.
Right.
I started getting magazines and digging and just trying I've got to find out how they made this movie.
Gotcha.
And just started learning about how movies were made. And just never I it's sometimes it's a bad thing because sometimes you watch something and I can't not see the crew and how they're really doing it. So it takes a really good, that's what I love about a great movie is they take that away, it make the magic of it pulls you
The
in so
magic of it.
much
Yeah.
that you forget about all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean, you
still really
forget
fun knowing how it's done.
you forget you when
Yes,
you're into a film
absolutely.
and it's well done. It you lose yourself in a beautiful
Absolutely.
way. Yeah. Yeah. Favorite film of all time. I know it's really hard, but
It is impossible, but I usually say Magnolia.
okay. Any others come to mind?
Everything he's done, and North by Northwest is my favorite. Hitchcock, Star Wars, of course, the original one.
Hmm.
Even though I know now, I understand now that it's not really technically a great movie, but
Yeah. Well, given the techniques they had at the time, maybe.
yeah, it's
Well, so
amazing.
what's a film that everyone thinks is great and it's real popular and people love, and you just think I just don't think that was a great film.
Oh, I don't know. That's really hard.
Any, yeah, may not nothing may come to mind. I'm just curious if
Yeah, I never got into the Harry Potter things.
okay.
I don't know.
How about some of the stuff like how about Goodfellas? What's your
Oh, I love
yeah,
Scorsese. Yeah,
yeah. No Country
absolutely.
for Old Men.
Love it.
Oh,
Cohen's. Yeah.
so good. So good. Okay. Couple more rapid fire questions before I let you
Sure.
go. What's the last record you listened to?
Born to Run.
Okay. Uh, if this could be a long question, but try to make it a rapid fire. Any guiding philosophy that you have in life, or do you ascribe to any particular kind of philosophy, or is it one of your own, or how do you think about that?
I would call myself a humanist. I discovered Vonnegut like a lot of people did at college age, and that had a huge influence on me. And just yeah, that's
Okay.
kind of where I try to see it. Just being kind is
Yeah,
what it's all about.
and you are, man. I noticed that immediately. What pisses you off?
Well, I'll preface this by saying, or I'll just say that just people being dumb. And I'll say that the thing that pisses me off more than anything is when I get, mad at myself for being dumb.
Yeah.
But just so much misinformation out there now
Uh,
and conspiracy theory stuff. And I'm a skeptic, and I'm like a card carrying practicing skeptic. And I like evidence
mhm.
and science
Yeah.
and I just all this nonsense we got going on now really is
Incredible.
hard to deal with.
It
Yeah.
is incredible. Do you have any particular practices that you lean on to deal with
Mhm.
shit?
Uh, yeah, when I'm taking good care of myself, I run. and meditate and journal. And I find those three things as a pretty potent, combination.
I'm going to guess you're a fairly avid reader as well.
Yes, I was a voracious reader, and once podcasts and iPhones came along, I discovered that I was a little bit less of a reader, but I do listen to a lot of really good, informative podcasts.
Yeah.
But I've been reading a lot lately. Reading Cliff Nesteroff's History of Comedy right now, which is a fantastic book.
Any other favorite writers? Vonnegut.
What's his name? Salman Rushdie
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, the greatest living English-speaking writer.
Okay.
I read Midnight's Children a couple of years ago, and I've never read another thing like that. It's incredible. He develops rhythms on pages of words that form little triplets, and it's just incredible.
Have you read Jim Harrison?
No, I haven't, but I'll get some.
Cormac?
Yeah, I read. Is it the one that HUD is based on? No, is it All the Pretty Horses, or am I
All the
confused?
Pretty Horses is one of his.
Yeah, I've read that. Yeah,
in a trilogy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk later about books for sure. But let's wrap up here. If you advice you would give yourself if you could talk to yourself at age 14.
Relax.
Yeah, man. Relax. Oh, that's good. That's good. Advice for young songwriters who come to you and say, hey, I want to be a songwriter.
I don't see that ever happening, but just don't be afraid of the page. Just it doesn't matter. There's nothing to lose.
Yeah, good. The two big questions you if you've watched these episodes, I always ask at the end. Maybe I'm a little obsessed with death. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I'm really fascinated in what people think about in terms of what happens when we die.
Well, as I said, I'm pretty rooted in science and evidence. I think to me it's pretty easy, and I think, I don't know if it's accurately attributed to Mark Twain or not, but they say he said something like, I was dead for billions of years before I was born, and it never inconvenienced me in the slightest. And so I feel like that's it.
Yeah.
So that, while we're here, gotta make it worth it.
We do, man. I think that's a good way to think about that. Yeah, I think it's Ricky Gervais who and I don't know if it's original with him, says, you didn't exist for millions of years.
Yeah, the same thing.
You exist for this little bit of time, and now you won't exist again for millions of years. So
why is that complicated?
Yeah. Well, it is, man, because whenever we lose someone close to us, I've lost both my parents, and the first one was my dad, and my God, man, it's just it's just so mysterious. It's so it feels it. We know it's so ordinary. Everyone, it happens to everybody, and it's happening all over the world right now.
The one thing that we all have in common.
Yeah.
If only one thing.
That's right.
That is the one thing we all have in common, and yet it's shocking when it happens.
I know. And you can't assimilate it. It's just so hard.
I did, when my dad passed, I studied Buddhism for quite a few years as well. And I was pretty heavily into that at the time. And I was doing the death meditations and stuff, and so I felt like I handled his death. I was prepared, I felt like I handled that pretty good. And I've been doing okay since Mom went last summer. Grief is a weird beast, man. It creeps up on you, and when you're not expecting it, and it's not there when you think it would be, and
Yeah. Have you tried to write out of that grief?
Just journaling. I haven't gotten a song out of it.
Last question, man. When you are dead and gone, what do you hope people say about you?
I just want them to say I was a nice guy and a good dad.
Yeah.
A good partner.
Well, you are a nice guy. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and I feel like our relationship is kind of, even though we've known you, or I've known you for, I don't know, 15 years at least, I feel like we just started to get to know each other, and I think the best is yet to come. I look forward to our paths crossing. I hope we get to play some more music together sometime soon and just hang out. I'd really love to just hang out with you.
Yeah. I want to thank you for being that, for poking the bear and making this friendship happen. It's really, it's great. Never too old to get more friends.
Amen, brother. And thank you so much for doing this, taking the time to connect. And Ed, I hope to see you soon, man.
You too, brother.
All right, take care.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.